Yeah, boy, it's June 4th and it's episode 151, and this is a Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast is the official podcast of the fantasyfootballauction.com, the internet's only website dedicated to all auction all the time, Mr. Blister. So we got a good show for you tonight. We're going to do a little free agency fallout based on an article that Blister wrote, and we're going to have that up on the website. So we're going to talk about some of the things that he's seen go through in free agency during this off season and how they're going to apply to your auction this year. We don't have Slim with us tonight, Blister, but you're here.
I'm here. And you know what? We're trying to get back into a groove here. And so we're going to smash a couple out of the park tonight and let Slimbo have the night off, and we'll make up for it next week.
Awesome. So last week we went through on episode 149, we talked about what an auction is and why you should be doing an auction. So if you're new to all of this, go back to episode 149 and have a listen to that. And then we also, in episode 150, talked about what you do with rookies during your auction redraft. We just did our rookie dynasty draft last night, Blister. It was a good time had by all. How do you think it went? Anything surprising? I know we're not a dynasty thing, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it's just like we said last night, we should maybe try to just do a draft a week, because drafting is often the most fun part of getting everybody together and having a couple pops and ridiculing each other's picks and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. So we got together. I think it went pretty good. One surprising guy took a lot of IDP players. He had a lot of picks
early
and took them early and often. And it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I didn't take one IDP player.
Yeah, me neither.
I probably, I had kind of preloaded some picks and didn't realize that they were still in there. So when I look back at my first overall pick at 110, I took Samaje Perine, and I really needed a tight end, and I wish I would have gotten a Joku or Ingram at that point, because there's probably running backs. I definitely got enough running backs down the road. I could have made up for the not getting Perine at that spot. And you know what? That's my only regret, but it was my own fault because I didn't have I just didn't have the settings set up properly. Should have had it emptied out of there, but Oh well.
Yeah, I took Corey Davis at 101, which I think, I'm still thinking team need, or you take the best guy, and I think that Corey Davis is the best guy, and so if he's the best guy, I can end up using that piece somewhere down the road. So I took that at the 101, and 103 I traded out of that, traded back Russell Wilson, which was a team need for me at quarterback, because I'm running Blake Bortles right now, and my team all of a sudden in the last, 4 weeks has gone from a middling team to, I think, a contending team now. So I thought the quarterback piece was important to my roster. Then I ended up picking up, who did I pick up? Joe Williams at 206, and then I traded for a future second, I think, out of that the 302, so that I could I just sitting there at 302, and there's 3 or 4 guys that I'm looking at, and I'm not sold on any one of them, so I got offered a future second for that third, which is a move up. So why not take it if there's nobody that I'm sold on at that spot? That was my thinking,
Yeah.
So yeah, other than that, my roster, I think, setting up pretty good. I did take Kamara at 8, so I did get one running back there. I was like you, though. I was kind of hoping my whole goal originally was to have that 108 be a tight end. If it was going to be, even if it was OJ Howard there, would have been great. He went at 7. So that's why I went for Kamara at 8.
Well, you got some nice players, no doubt about it. I was just looking through my list here, and if some of these guys hit, I'll be quite happy. But Samaje Perine, 110, 204, I took Dante Foreman, 205, Jamal Williams, 211, I took Chris Godwin, 304, I took Cooper Kupp. I had the 311, I think it was, and I traded it for Michael Floyd. I thought, what the heck? I think Michael Floyd has been showing some promise, and who knows, at that point in the draft, if I was going to take a receiver, I think Michael Foyt's been at least, he's going to a new team, but at least, there might be a chance I get something out of him this year.
Yeah.
And so then I picked again at 403. I took Taiwan Taylor, and my last pick was 409, and I took Jake Butt. So he's probably not going to help me this year, but who knows? I do need some help at tight end through some trading and stuff. I have Hunter Henry, which is good, and I have Cameron Brate, and with OJ Howard there, I'm sure Cameron Brate's going to see a few less looks this year. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think I do still need help, but there's a lot of time between now and the regular season to sort that out.
Yeah. Well, a shout out to Hilly for hosting a good event last night. Big prime rib and, corn and whatever else and mojitos. And we got the keg finally working. So it was a good night for the rookie draft. There's something to be said about drafting live and having all the boys together. And it was a good time. So shout out to Hilly for putting on a good night, and shout out to the commish for organizing everything.
That's right. That was a good night. A lot of fun.
Our commission slim. Anyways, so let's actually get into what we are supposed to be talking about tonight, Blister. So if you guys are ready, then I'm ready. It's time for action. So like we said, we're going to talk a little bit about free agency. Blister's written an article. I'm going to post that article maybe even tonight with the pod. We can get that up there and you can have a look. So head over to the website thefantasyfootballauction.com and have a look. So Blister, when you were looking at the free agencies here and you're looking at winners and losers, what are some things that jumped out to you right away?
Well, you know what? Every year there's free agency is an exciting time, but it always impacts somebody. Sometimes it's a positive impact because somebody leaves, which upgrades the person behind them, or sometimes it's a negative impact because the team signs another running back or whatever the case may be, and the person that you're hoping would be, the heir to the throne kind of put on hold again, or kind of makes you think the team doesn't believe in them. So they take a bit of a bump, and depending on when you draft, like this can all sort itself out, and it can also, by the time the season rolls around, these guys could be hurt and could be a different story. But there are people, like we said, we had a draft last night. I know there's been drafts going on for some time now, and I think as June, we're in June now, and things will really start picking up. So it's kind of important to look at that, because especially when you're in an auction, there's guys on this list that we're going to talk about that are definitely not going to go anywhere near the price they went last year.
Right.
And it's going to make it quite interesting. In some cases it could provide good value, and in some cases it could be a lot more expensive than you thought. So yeah, I put a few down, and I think there's obviously more, but I didn't want to write a novel for somebody to read. Right. If you're a fantasy guy like me, you want quick hit information, something to chew on, something to ponder, but you don't want to read stories and stories and stories. I think sometimes you can overanalyze things as well, and you could overanalyze the crap out of stuff, and to no avail. Things happen for different reasons, and guy can get hurt in his first play, and it doesn't matter. So, anyways, brought a few down here. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start right at the top. You've got the Saints. You got a winner and a loser coming out of New Orleans. So I guess first on your list there is Willie Snead. What happened to him with all the free agent moves?
I know last year Willie Snead, I put down, he ranked 35th amongst receivers in PPR, and for everything we talk about, we're going to be referring to it as PPR. But he had 72 catches, 895 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So it wasn't bad. Just your low end wide receiver 6, but he had 2 receivers ahead of him, and Thomas and Cooks. Michael Thomas is a rookie, and he ended up as the number 7 wide receiver last year, and Cooks was the number 11 wide receiver. Cooks had 78 grabs for 1,173 yards and 8 touchdowns. So Cooks was traded to New England. Thomas will obviously be the number 1, but that leaves Cooks had 117 targets last year and 78 grabs, which, I think I'm quite a bit happier when it's up to around the 90 grab or 100 grabs. But you know what? That's 117 targets, 78 grabs that, they're not all coming to Willie Snead, but he's going to be number 2 on the depth chart. They're obviously the first and second option in the passing game. Thomas is going to get all the attention. The Saints defense isn't going to be a whole lot better, if at all. So they're going to be throwing the ball quite a bit. And thus, Willie Snead, I think, is going to be a big winner of the offseason. And, I think people are kind of skeptical on Willie. Like they don't know if he can really be that guy. So I'd say right now, if you're drafting in an auction, you'd probably get him for around $15. That's a guesstimate because I haven't done any mocks or anything yet. That's a good idea. That's what I should put on the list of things to do. A mock draft right away. Anyway, so that's my first one. What do you think about Willie?
I mean,
You've had Willie.
I've had him, and I owned him in Dynasty, and I kind of just threw him in as an extra piece to make a move, earlier in this offseason, and then Cooks gets traded, and you're like,
oh, you traded him to me.
Was it to you?
I think you gave him to me for CJ in a CJ Anderson deal.
I think that was it. Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
It was to you. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, because I see Jansen. So, but then you're kind of kicking yourself because you were the owner, and you wait a few extra weeks, and you're going to get more out of it than you would have. But I mean, I think Snead, because you're right. People don't really value him because he doesn't. Well, he was kind of a flash in the pan, or he, not the most skilled guy, but for some reason they like him there, and Brees targets him, and he's productive. He scores, and he can make the clutch catches and whatever, and so he's been good, even though you don't want to like him.
Yeah.
He's like that band that you're not supposed to like, but you kind of do. That's kind of what Willie Snead is. So,
I remember when he first came onto the scene, it was like, oh yeah, who's this guy?
Well, it's going to be Brandon Coleman. Yeah, it was going to be Brandon Coleman. It wasn't going to be Willie Snead.
That's right. So we didn't really put a lot of faith in him. But I remember when we made the trade, CJ was kind of banged up, I think, and I was trying to make a push. I needed a little more depth at wide receiver through the playoffs. So that's why I think I think like in the long run, I think he might have got a better deal. But at the time, I needed the help now to try to get back and defend the title. I think that's what happened there. So it didn't work, I don't think, though.
Well, and we
just traded him this past year, right? So
yeah,
I haven't had him that long.
That's right. So I pick up a running back there, but you have a running back on the Saints that you are deeming the Lihu Zahir of the free agent moves.
I worry about that. I mean, Mark Ingram, it always seems like no matter what he does, he's always got to look over his shoulder. And they signed Adrian Peterson in the offseason. And I think I don't think Adrian Peterson has a whole lot left, but I guess we'll find out. He's going to, depending on how long it takes for him to prove whether he does or whether he doesn't, that's going to be less touches for Ingram. They also added, Alvin Kamara, who you drafted in the offseason, as a great pass catcher. And, if you're listening to some dynasty pods, it could be 70, 80 catches for this Alvin Kamara. So, I hesitate to think it could be that high because often like we say, is a shiny new toy, gets a lot of attention. But I do think Mark Ingram, no matter what, he keeps guys come and go through there. He's still there, but I just think that with these other people, it could be a lot of touches lost. So I think it might just be enough to, take him out of being an RB1 for next year. He finished 8th last year in PPR as well, but I just worry that with AP there, AP's not going to just sit there and cheer him on and coach him. He's going to get some touches. Kamara's going to probably, as long as he shows well and can pass protect or whatever, he's going to get a few opportunities to shine as well. So I just think that could hurt him slightly, but maybe if you can get him for a good price and he still can be like the 12th or 14th ranked running back, then maybe it's a guy to just keep an eye on and maybe talk him up that he's going to have a lot less touches so that maybe you can buy him cheap on draft day.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't understand it how he can be the 8th ranked running back and you're going to bring an AP. Like it doesn't, and then draft a high caliber running back there. And it's not like Mark Ingram's old and he's not banged up, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, is he sleeping with somebody's wife? I don't understand why. Honestly, I don't understand why they just slap him around like that.
Yeah, and it's been like that for the last few years, really.
Yeah.
I mean, every time, like even if he's had a good game, they're still talking about how many, like they aren't consistent with how many touches he gets from week to week, and it's a little scary. So I don't. That's one that I deemed a loser from free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I don't know how you could draft him, to be honest, because you're gonna have to pay for him, and I'm not willing to pay.
Yeah.
I'd rather take the $1 flyer somewhere else than have to spend whatever,
Yeah.
$18 or whatever
Yeah.
you're gonna have to spend, right?
Even if it's $20 or $24, you could probably get a really good receiver. Definitely get a really good receiver, or wide receiver too, that can
Yeah.
definitely put up, 200, maybe 200 fantasy points for you. Whereas Ingram, it's too tough to say whether he will actually get that much this year. So I'd stay away for now. But maybe, who knows? Maybe AP will break something or hurt something before they even get on the field, and all of a sudden his value will shoot back up again too.
Hit somebody or what? I mean,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Switching over to another team. You like that one too? Switching because
yeah.
Thank you. Anyways, Sterling Shepard's next guy on your list here, Blister, and looks like you're touting him as a loser also in this free agency.
Yes, unfortunately, because here's another guy I acquired in the offseason. I think I traded Tyler Eifert for him. At the time, Eifert was banged up again, and Sterling Shepard didn't have Brandon Marshall in town. But now he has, last year 65 catches, 683 yards, and 8 touchdowns, which is pretty solid rookie stat line. He was drafted pretty high in our draft, wasn't he? A first rounder, or was he early?
Yeah, he was a first rounder.
I think he was a first rounder, right? So they added Brandon Marshall, they added Evan Ingram, a tight end. I just wonder, with Brandon Marshall is going to be demanding some looks, and they got Odell Beckham obviously still there. So he's definitely going to be splitting. He's not going to get as many looks as he got last year. So he can't put up, he won't probably have an opportunity even to put up the numbers that he did last year. So if he goes down from 65 catches and 680 yards and 8 touchdowns, well, unfortunately, a young receiver like that who has, drafted high last year, you'd be hoping for an uptick in production. You'd probably be hoping for 80, 85 catches and closer to 1,000 yards this year, but that's not going to happen. So I don't think he's dead in the water. I don't know any reason why they wouldn't have been happy with him, but with Marshall there, he's going to get his too. So I just think that he's one that you're probably going to want to shy away from on auction day.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if his line last year, it's going to be a ceiling, right? Whatever his stat line from last year, I don't think it's going to get much better than that. And it's going to probably be lower. But again, he's one of those guys you're going to have to, because he's a name, you're going to have to pay for it. And I would put my money somewhere else, right? Because I just don't think he's going to outperform the 65 catches. I can't see it, right?
Yeah.
Especially with Ingram there too. He's going to be hogging stuff down the middle and in the slots and those types of things, right? So I don't know. It's another weird move, I thought, bringing in Brandon Marshall.
It is. Yeah, because it's not like Brandon Marshall is going to be quiet, low key, guy. He's gonna demand his attention, his looks. I mean, and so now all of a sudden you got 2 pretty much stud receivers in Odell Beckham, and I thought Sterling Shepard would have been on that route too. And even maybe they all have roles where they have three receiver sets and whatnot. It's just the fact that when you have that many able bodies, and if you include Evan Ingram into that mix, because they do like throwing to the tight end, there's 4 right there. And maybe throw in Shane Vereen or, Paul Perkins, where they're going to catch a few. So there's 6 names that you could spread the ball around right there. So I think it's going to make it a little bit tougher for him to take a step this year, step forward. It's going to probably take a slight regression. Yeah,
and I mean, with that stat line, he's a flex at best, and I think you can do much better for the price point. So that's
I agree.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving down, we got a tight end here, Jack Doyle. You say is a winner chicken dinner?
I think so. Dwayne Allen's gone to New England now. So last year, Jack was pretty productive. Ended up as a 13th ranked tight end. Dwayne last year had 35 grabs for 406 yards and 6 touchdowns. And we know that Luck in that offense does like to use the tight end. So I think that Doyle could approach 800 yards this year. And last year, like I said, he had 584 yards, 5 touchdowns, and maybe he could get up to 800 this year and 10 TDs. Another name to watch in Indy is Eric Swoop. He's another guy that you might want to keep an eye on. I think Jack would be the first guy, but next year Eric could be the number 2, and you could flip it around where he could end up with 400 yards and 6 scores or something. So he could be a serviceable tight end at times as well. And if Jack Doyle goes down, obviously, then he's going to be the number 1. So you got to watch those guys. Last year, Swoop, he played 9 games. He had 15 grabs on 22 targets for 297 yards and 1 touchdown. So he can catch. He's getting an opportunity now to take the next step and move ahead. So keep an eye on him too as the training camp goes. But I think Jack Doyle, he could easily, if he does what I said, like 800 yards, and
if he does what I said,
well, he could be up into your top 5 tight end range, which is hard to believe because there's really good tight ends up there. But it's a matter of he's going to get the targets, and he's going to get the looks. So I think he's going to be a big winner in free agency.
Well, if you're listening, just listen to Blister. If you do what he says,
810 scores. I mean, no problem.
The Blister says Jack Doyle rules. Oh, Doyle rules.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. John Brown with the Cardinals. You like Floyd leaving for him?
Michael Floyd was gone, now partway through the season. And Brown had a rough year last year with injuries. But when you look at that depth chart too, it doesn't have a whole lot of they got J.J. Nelson there, and I'm just going to pull it up here 1 second. But I just think that if he's coming back, rumor has it that he's healed up now. He's looking better. And he's going to, Fitz is not young, and this is his last hurrah. So then you got, J.J. Nelson, Britton Golden, Jaron Brown, and both John and Jaron Brown, I think, are in contract years. So there's another reason for John to play well. And then Marquise Bundy, Aaron Dobson's over there, Jeremy Ross. They drafted some guys, and I think Chad Williams, a guy that they drafted, could very well step up and challenge for the number 2 role, but definitely be in the picture. So I think Chad Williams is a guy to watch. But right now, number 1 is Larry, number 2 is John Brown. So John Brown stays healthy, and Carson likes to throw the ball. And they really don't have much for tight end, and they don't use them that much. So I think that David Johnson is going to get the majority of the looks. But man, when that talent drops off quickly, it goes from David Johnson to an aged Larry Fitzgerald, and then basically John Brown's number 3 on that whole team, probably in terms of getting the ball. So I think he's got nowhere to go but up from last year. Because like I said, last year he was banged up pretty bad, and he didn't. Did he have that sickle cell too? Is that was part of the problem?
Oh yeah, that could be. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I think something like that. I think he's got that under control. So look for him to be. And I think there's a guy too that I think will go under the radar a bit. I would be hesitant, but if he could potentially be a wide receiver too, and I think you could get him for not very much money.
You probably wouldn't have to pay double digits for him, I bet.
No, I bet you right now in these mock auctions, when it goes out to computer to robots, you get them for $1. But in reality, I bet you get them for 5 or 6.
Yeah. Which if he ends up being a 2 or even a high 3, that's it's not too shabby. Let's move into the Ravens backfield, Blister. It's a little bit sloppy and messy in there. How do you think this one shakes out after free agency?
Well, the big winners are the guys that are left, Kenneth Dixon and Terrence West, because they didn't bring anybody in yet, anyways, and they didn't really draft anybody. So they got Dixon and Terrence West. The reason I listed them both is because Kenneth Dixon is suspended for the first few games of the year. So West gets the first crack, and he did a decent job last year when he was there. But because they didn't add anybody, well, I shouldn't say they didn't add anybody. They added Danny Woodhead, but he is not going to be the type of back. He's going to play. He's not young anymore either, and he gets banged up a lot in his career. So he's not going to be in there taking carries away from them. He's going to be in there as a PPR guy, third down guy. But I think when Dixon comes back, they obviously must like what they see in him. And last year he was really highly touted in the dynasty drafts and the rookie drafts and stuff like that, and had high expectations. And he showed some flashes. I think this year is his year to grab that job when he comes back and take off with it. So just the fact that they didn't go out and get anybody gives them, they're going to get a good opportunity there. I think Dixon is more talented of the two. running backs. So I think it's just a matter of him getting back, staying on the field, and I think he takes that job from West right away. And then, again, because he's suspended and because it looks like a committee job for now with Dixon and West, you're going to probably get these guys. And again, and based on last year, they didn't blow anybody out of the water last year. A couple more guys you can target on draft day if you want to spend up on another position. There's a couple of running backs right there that you could probably get for a lot less than a proven starter.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I own Terrence West in a dynasty and ECL, maybe? No.
Do
I feel? No, maybe not. But I know yeah. I mean, I have him in the dynasty right now. But
I used to have him somewhere. I drafted him somewhere when he was a rookie. I'd got him somehow somewhere, but I don't know what that was in either. Maybe that was an ECL.
Next on to a guy that I did draft in the Dynasty League, who I no longer own, Jordan Matthews blister. There's a lot of movement to the wide receiving core here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, there sure is. Last year, Matthews only ended up with 731 yards on 3 touchdowns and 67 grabs. So I don't think that was what people had hoped for out of him last year. I think he was definitely disappointed. And then they had Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey this year in free agency. And, both those guys aren't slam dunks I wrote in the article. I don't want to keep reading off of it. But, when you add those guys in there and Matthews, all of a sudden it's hard to say what he's going to be able to do. I think Jeffrey should be their number 1. Matthews should be their number 2. But you got a young quarterback still coming into his second year. And, on each play, how many progressions has he got to get through to get to Matthews now? They're going to have a couple like PPR running backs probably with Sproles and Donnell Pumphrey. So Blount is going to probably be pounding it on the ground. Ryan Matthews is probably the biggest loser in Philadelphia because he's probably out the door. And I don't think that's officially happened yet, but that's what looks like it will be happening. So both the Matthews boys in Philly are not going to be guys I'll be targeting in my auction because their value has gone way down.
Well, it's interesting because you do get a lot of takes on Jordan Matthews that some people like the move because it forces him to play back in the slot where he's better and he's more effective, right? And so, and it draws coverage too, right? Alshon's going to draw coverage, and they have to hold a safety because of Torrey Smith, right? Yeah. So all of a sudden, I've heard I mean, I don't know which way I go. I think I steer clear from him because I just don't think he's that good at football.
Yeah,
I don't think he's much of a talent really, but I have heard, some people in the biz talk about that they're kind of happy to see him move back into the slot.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that'll help him. I mean, slot receiver Austin can get more catches, so that could be good in a sense. Who knows? I mean, they have behind those 3 guys, and I don't even like Torrey. I never did like Torrey Smith, and Alshon's really let us down in a few leagues when we have drafted him. Remember what happened? What screwed us up with Alshon is when we saw him play in Minneapolis, and he was a freaking stud that game.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
You have that lingering memory thinking, oh yeah, he'll do that, but that's the last time I think he's played well. But that was years ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
But behind them,
that was in the old dome. That's how long
was.
ago it was. That place doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, because they played for 2 years in the Gophers. Yeah, so that was a long time ago. So that ruined us. It tainted us from thinking that he was going to be a guy that we needed to draft. Remember that high stakes league we went in and he was our you just blew him. Slim and I had to. It was the year that DeMarco took off for Tennessee a couple years ago. And who did I want? CJ or who did I want? No, it was Monty Ball.
Monty Ball. Yeah, that's right.
What that asshole. He's not even in the league. we flipped the coin, finally went in a good high stakes league.
It was good. And it was the year DeMarco went crazy for the Cowboys, right?
Yeah. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Then we had Alshon. He did nothing. Very bad. Hate you, Alshon.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So last one on your list here, Blister, is Thomas Rawls. You think Fat Eddie really is going to eat into his carries?
I don't know. No, he'll eat them. He'll just eat them.
Just eat them in general.
Rawls, I guess the biggest thing is that he looked he didn't play enough. He didn't, grab that torch and run with it like you kind of hoped he would when Marshawn was gone. And they got CJ Procise. They did draft Alex Collins at the same time. So Collins obviously didn't do a whole lot. But I think the hope for them is that Procise will at least be their number one. I think Rawls, if I remember correctly, he was undrafted. So they signed an undrafted free agent. And I'm working on an article right now. I'll probably finish it tomorrow, maybe. That it talks about, why you hear that all the time. Like, oh, they have a lot invested in him, or they don't have much invested in him. They'll let him go. So if they take a first round draft choice, they get a lot of guaranteed money. So when they're guaranteeing these young kids a lot of money, they're going to give them a chance to perform, and they can sign them for 4 years with a 5th-year option. And then if you're coming in as an undrafted free agent, they can sign you for next to nothing, and they don't have as much of a commitment. So for them to sign you and let you go, it's not a big deal. And right. I think it also comes down to a bit of ego and pride. If you're drafting somebody early on, you don't want to look like you made a bad choice. So you want this kid to prove you right and, save your job probably too, versus just pulling a guy off the street kind of thing. You're not really married to this person. So Rawls was, I think, undrafted, if I remember correctly. Eddie Lacy is, I'm not worried about Eddie. He hasn't been playing well at all, and I don't think he will. Procise, though, and Collins are guys that could just take over that whole backfield. So I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed, and you just look at all those names. And sorry, I keep making the food jokes with Eddie Lacy, but I think that I just think that, again, it's a little scary to take him and to have to pay whatever it would cost, even if it was $12-15. I think and it could be a heck of a lot less by the time your draft day rolls around August. But it just seems to me that would be a losing venture.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a list of winners and losers from the free agency battles that took place during the off season. We will post it as an article too. So if you want to go in and take a look at the article, you can do that as well. It's thefantasyfootballauction.com. So head on over there. If you want to support the podcast, it would be awesome if you jumped on to whatever app you're listening to this on and give us a rating. The iTunes ratings and such help move us up and let more people listen, and those types of things, which maybe you don't want to do because people in your league will be listening and that type of thing, but it would really help us. It takes about 2 seconds for you to jump over there and just click the stars. So that would be very helpful also. Blister, let's off and get out here again soon.
Sounds good. How long was that?
I don't know. We're pretty good. I think it was 35-ish or so.
Oh, that's lots. Sure.
Not too shabby. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So for you guys, well, Blister, I will talk to you soon, but everybody else, I'll see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.